You can stand in your yard right now and see the gaps, the bare patches, the thin borders, the spots where nothing has ever really filled in the way you pictured it. And every spring, you tell yourself the same thing. Real gardens take years. Lush landscapes take a decade. Maybe by the time you retire, maybe when the kids are grown, you will finally have the kind of yard people actually slow down to look at. Throw all of that out. It is wrong. These 11 plants double in size their first season. They triple by their second. By year 3, you are pulling divisions out of them, giving them away to neighbors, and watching new plants pop up in spots you never planted them. They cover ground. They crowd out weeds. They bloom in continuous waves from May straight through November. And 4 of them give you genuine color and structure even in January, when every other yard on your street has surrendered completely to winter. 12 weeks is what this actually takes. One Saturday in May is what it actually costs. Plant these 11 right now, and your yard is the lushest landscape on the block by July. By next spring, you have a fully naturalized habitat that breathes. By year 3, your neighbors are walking up your driveway asking what your secret is. But the window is May, not late June, not July when you finally get a free weekend. Plant late, and these aggressive spreaders are already too stressed to do what made them famous in the first place. Plant now, and the entire growing season is yours. By the time we get to plant number 7, you are going to wonder why you ever bought an annual in your life again. Oh, let's get into it. Plant 1, Creeping Phlox. There is one specific moment, every single April or early May, depending on your zone, when this plant decides to wake up. And when it does not bloom politely. It does not offer a few flowers and call it a day. It detonates. An entire bed, an entire slope, an entire stretch of a garden edge becomes a solid sheet of color almost overnight, and it stays that way for 3 to 4 straight weeks. Phlox subulata is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. The flower colors come in electric pink, pure crisp white, deep magenta, and soft lavender, and you can mix all 4 together in one bed for a marbled effect that looks like a field of wildflowers compressed into a few feet of soil. The plant grows only 4 to 6 inches tall, but the flowers are so densely packed that the foliage underneath disappears completely during peak bloom. Here is what most gardening channels never bother to mention about creeping phlox. The foliage is evergreen. After the flowers fade in early summer, you are left with a dense, fine-textured carpet of needle-like green that holds its color all the way through winter. Snow falls on it. Frost coats it. It stays green. So while every other ground cover on this list disappears for half the year, creeping phlox gives you ground-level structure 12 months out of 12. That is one of the most underrated features of any spreading perennial available to American home gardeners right now. It spreads outward at roughly 2 feet per season through trailing stems that root themselves wherever they touch the soil. You do not divide it. You do not propagate it intentionally. You do not do anything. The plant is multiplying for you while you are inside the house. By year 3, one initial planting of 3 small phlox plugs will have closed the gap into a continuous carpet covering 20 to 30 square feet. And here is the secret application that almost nobody talks about. Highway departments plant creeping phlox on roadside embankments, specifically to eliminate erosion permanently. That troublesome slope on the side of your yard, the one you have been mowing or losing topsoil from, is solved for the rest of your life with one Saturday of planting. Plant in full sun to light shade in well-draining soil. After bloom, give it a light shearing. That single haircut keeps the center dense and prevents the woody bare spot problem that defeats lazy phlox growers. Plant 2. Common periwinkle, Vinca minor. There is a reason you see this plant cascading across the entrance to old churches, blanketing the woodland floors of historic estates, and naturalizing in the shaded corners of public parks across America. Once it goes in, it stays. For decades. For generations. Vinca minor is one of the few plants on this list that, planted correctly in the right setting, will outlast you and probably the next 2 owners of your house. Vinca minor is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. The leaves are small, glossy, and a deep waxy green that looks polished even in the worst summer drought. In April and May, soft periwinkle blue star-shaped flowers appear by the hundreds across the trailing stems, lifting the entire planting into a blue haze for 3 to 4 weeks. After bloom, the foliage carries the show, and it carries it through every single season. Here is the part that makes this plant essential for anyone with shade. The foliage is true evergreen, not semi-evergreen, not winter-tolerant. Evergreen. In zones 5 and warmer, those glossy green leaves stay green through January, through February, through 3-foot snowfalls, through brutal cold snaps. While the rest of your shade garden is bare brown soil and dormant root crowns from November through March, the area planted in Vinca minor still looks like a living, intentional, designed garden. It spreads through stems that trail along the ground and root themselves at every node where they touch soil. One small 4-inch pot, planted this May, will cover 3 to 4 square feet by August and roughly 9 to 12 square feet by next spring. By year 3, you will be pulling stems out of areas where you do not want them anymore. That is genuinely the rate of multiplication you are working with. One important note. Vinca minor is considered invasive in some northeastern and Pacific Northwest states. Before planting large areas, check your state's invasive plant list. If yours flags it, you have alternatives like Pachysandra and Lamium that perform similarly. But in most of the country, Vinca minor is the most reliable, fastest establishing, longest-lived shade, ground cover available to home gardeners. Plant in part shade to full shade in any soil that drains. Water through the first month, then walk away for the next 20 years. 2 plants in, and I want you to do one thing in the comments below before plant number 3. Tell me what zone you are gardening in. And tell me whether you are working with a sunny yard, a shady yard, or a mix of both. Because everything on this list works for somebody, but choosing the right plants for your specific conditions is what separates a yard that thrives from a yard that just survives. Drop your answer below. I read every single comment, and your zone tells me exactly which videos to make next. Plant 3, Lamb's Ear, Stachys byzantina, is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8, and it is the single most touched plant in any garden where it is planted. Children stop dead in their tracks when they walk past it. Adults reach down without thinking. People who have never gardened a single day in their lives will pause, smile, and run a finger across the leaves before they even realize they are doing it. The leaves are covered in a dense layer of soft, silvery white hair that feels precisely like its name suggests. Exactly that soft. Exactly that gentle. There is no other plant in American gardening that creates that kind of physical sensory memory in everyone who encounters it. But the texture is only half the reason this plant earns a permanent spot in any landscape. The silver-white foliage performs a job in the garden that no other plant performs as well. It amplifies the colors of every flowering plant you put near it. Purple flowers next to lamb's ear look deeper. Pink flowers look softer and more romantic. Red flowers look more saturated. Professional landscape designers use it specifically as a living color amplifier. You are not just planting lamb's ear. You are improving every single plant you put within 6 feet of it. Here is the science that makes that silver color what it is, and almost no gardener knows this. The color is not actually pigment. It is the dense layer of microscopic hairs reflecting light back outward at every angle. And those same hairs serve a second function. They dramatically reduce moisture loss from the leaf surface. Lamb's ear is not just drought tolerant by accident. It is drought engineered at the cellular level. In the worst weeks of an American summer, while everything else in your garden is wilting, lamb's ear is managing its own water reserves with a biological system more sophisticated than anything you could buy in a bottle. It spreads through stolons, horizontal surface stems that travel outward and root themselves at nodes as they go. One starter plant becomes a full continuous mat of silver in 2 seasons. In zones 6 and warmer, the foliage stays semi-evergreen through winter, giving you silver-white ground-level color in February when everything around it has turned gray and brown. That is rare and genuinely valuable. Plant in full sun in well-draining soil. Avoid wet, poorly drained spots which rot the crown over winter. If you do not want the flower spikes, which some gardeners find too tall and floppy, choose the cultivar Helene von Stein, also sold as Big Ears. It produces almost no flowers, just an absolute carpet of oversized silver leaves all summer long. That is the version most landscape designers reach for, and now you know why. Plant 4, hardy geranium Rozanne. This is not the geranium you see in hanging baskets at every grocery store every spring. That plant is a pelargonium, an annual that dies at the first frost and needs replacing every year. Hardy geranium, also called cranesbill, is a true perennial. It comes back, It spreads. It blooms continuously for 4 full months without you doing a single thing to it. Geranium Rozanne is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 8, and the cultivar Rozanne specifically was named Plant of the Centenary by the Royal Horticultural Society in 2013, beating every other ornamental plant introduced in the previous 100 years. That award is not marketing language. That is the most respected gardening institution in the world telling you this is the single best perennial they have evaluated in a century. The flowers are the size of a quarter, deep violet blue with a small white center and fine purple veining radiating outward. And they appear in continuous waves from late May or early June all the way through October. 5 months of non-stop bloom from a single plant. There is essentially nothing else on the American gardening market that matches that bloom duration without deadheading, without dividing, without any intervention from you whatsoever. Here is the secret that makes Rozanne function the way it does. It is sterile. It cannot set seed. So instead of putting energy into producing seeds the way most flowering plants do, after bloom, every flower that finishes simply makes way for another flower. The plant is biologically committed to flowering as its only output. That genetic feature is exactly what gives you those 5 uninterrupted months of color. It spreads outward through long, sprawling stems that can stretch 3 to 4 feet in every direction by midsummer. The stems do not climb. They flow. They cascade naturally over walls, weave gracefully between other perennials, and fill in gaps without smothering their neighbors. Rozanne does not multiply by underground rhizomes the way most spreaders do. It expands by getting bigger and bigger every year from the same root crown. After 4 to 5 years, you can divide the crown in early spring and turn one mature plant into 3 or 4. Plant in full sun to light shade in any decent garden soil. After the first hard frost, cut the entire plant back to the ground. Next May, it returns even larger than the year before. Plant 5, bee balm. If you have never had a hummingbird hover 3 feet from your face while you were sitting in your own backyard, this is the plant that makes that happen. And the first time it happens, you will never garden without bee balm again. That is genuinely how memorable the experience is. Monarda didyma is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 9. The flowers are unlike anything else in the garden. Spiky, tubular, almost firework-shaped, in vivid blazing red, deep raspberry pink, rich royal purple, and bright clean white. They sit on top of 3-foot stems all through July and August, exactly when most summer gardens are running out of bloom energy. And those tubular flowers are not just beautiful, they are biologically engineered for hummingbird feeding. The shape, the depth, the nectar position, and all of it matches the precise dimensions of a hummingbird's beak. The birds find this plant within days of you planting it, something that genuinely surprises people. Bee balm is in the mint family. The leaves are completely edible and brew into a tea that tastes remarkably similar to Earl Grey, specifically the bergamot citrus note that gives Earl Grey its character. You are growing a wildlife habitat and a kitchen herb in the same plant. Native Americans called it Oswego tea and used it medicinally for centuries before colonists ever encountered it. That history is built into every cup you brew from your own garden. It spreads aggressively through underground rhizomes, which means it doubles its colony every 2 to 3 seasons in good conditions. One starter plant becomes a sprawling 4-foot patch by year 3. If you want to slow that spread, plant it inside a buried plastic root barrier or in a contained bed with hardscape edges. If you want to embrace it, give it a meadow-style area and let it run. For best results, choose the mildew-resistant cultivars. Jacob Klein produces a deep blazing red that is the gold standard for the species. Raspberry Wine produces a rich pink and is one of the most vigorous spreaders in the entire genus. Both perform beautifully across most American growing zones with significantly less mildew problems than older varieties. Plant in full sun to light shade and average soil with decent moisture. Cut back to the ground after frost. Watch the hummingbirds arrive next July. 5 plants in. And if even one of these has caught your attention enough that you are mentally walking out into your yard right now, imagining where you would put it, do me one favor before we go any further. Subscribe to this channel right now. Not at the end. Not later. Now. Because the gardeners who subscribe in the middle of a video are statistically the ones who actually plant something. They are the ones whose yards genuinely change. The button is right below the video. It costs you nothing, and it makes sure the next video, which goes even deeper than this one, actually finds you. Plant 6, Yarrow. Achillea millefolium is hardy in USDA, zones 3 through 9. This plant grows in gravel. It grows in cracked, dry hardpan. It grows in places where you have already killed 3 other plants and walked away in frustration. And then it blooms for 6 straight months without asking you for water, fertilizer, attention, or anything else. The flat-topped flower clusters come in clear yellow, pure white, soft pink, vivid coral, and deep red, depending on the cultivar. Paprika produces fiery red blooms that fade to copper. Strawberry Seduction holds a rich strawberry red that the flower industry has tried and failed to replicate elsewhere. Moonshine, the most popular yellow variety, produces lemon yellow plates above silver-green ferny foliage, and the color combination is so striking that it has been used in award-winning English garden designs for decades. The foliage is feathery, intensely aromatic, and silver-green, and that aroma is exactly why deer and rabbits walk straight past Yarrow without slowing down. The scent puts them off before they get close enough to evaluate eating it. You do not need fencing, you do not need spray, you do not need any external defense system. The plant is its own repellent. Here is what almost no gardening video ever explains. Yarrow releases natural allelopathic compounds into the surrounding soil, biological chemicals that actively suppress weed seed germination in a roughly 2-foot radius around each plant. While Yarrow blooms in your border, it is running a built-in weed suppression system that you never installed and never have to maintain. And it gets even better. The flowers attract parasitic wasps, lacewings, and hoverflies in large numbers. Insects that prey on aphids, spider mites, and the soft-bodied pests that quietly damage everything else in your yard. Yarrow runs a free pest management program inside your garden simultaneously with a free weed barrier program. That is genuinely 2 unpaid garden services from 1 perennial plant. It spreads aggressively through rhizomes and self-seeds heavily on top of that. 1 small 4-inch pot becomes a 4-foot patch in 2 seasons. Every clump you dig out of an established planting yields 6 to 10 viable divisions. At nursery prices, 1 3-year-old Yarrow clump produces $40 to $100 worth of free new plants in a single morning. Plant in full sun in lean, dry, neglected soil. Rich amended soil makes Yarrow floppy and weak. Bad soil makes it perform. Plant 7, Russian Sage. This is the one I told you would change everything. Pay close attention. Perovskia atriplicifolia is hardy in USDA, zones 4 through 9, and it is, frankly, one of the most architectural and dramatic plants you can put into an American garden right now. Picture a 4-foot-tall airy cloud of small lavender-purple flowers floating above silvery-white aromatic foliage, swaying in the slightest breeze, holding its shape from late July all the way through October. That is what Russian sage gives you, and it does it in conditions that would kill almost every other ornamental on this list. The flowers are not solid masses the way bee balm or coneflower flowers are. They are open and airy, dancing on long, thin stems that cover the entire plant. Light passes through Russian sage. The plant glows in the late afternoon when the sun comes in low. There is almost nothing else in American gardening that catches the 7 o'clock light in August the way a mature stand of Russian sage does. Prairie garden designers plant it specifically for that single hour of the day. Now here is the part that makes it the kind of plant most gardeners do not realize they need. The woody base persists through winter. Even after the foliage drops in November, the silvery white branching framework stays standing through every snowstorm and every January cold snap, holding architectural structure in your garden when virtually nothing else is. You get a 4-season presence from a single plant. Summer color, fall color, winter structure, spring regrowth. Russian sage spreads 2 ways. Underground rhizomes push outward and produce new plants 2 to 3 feet from the original root crown each season. And the plant self-seeds modestly. 1 initial planting becomes a substantial colony in 3 to 4 years without you intervening at all. Hot heat does not bother it. Drought does not bother it. Poor soil does not bother it. The worse the conditions, the better Russian sage performs. Cut the plant back to about 12 inches above the ground every March, just before new growth begins. That single annual cut produces a fuller, denser, more dramatic plant in summer. Plant in full sun and well-drained soil. The one thing it will not tolerate is wet feet in winter. If your soil is heavy clay, amend with coarse sand and gravel, or plant on a slight mound. Get that detail right, and Russian sage will perform reliably for decades. Tell me honestly in the comments, of the 7 plants we have covered so far, which one are you putting in the ground first this May? Because that single answer tells me what direction your yard is going. And it tells me which plants on the rest of this list are going to matter most to you. Drop the name below. The comment section under this channel has become genuinely useful, and your reply makes it more useful for the next gardener who finds this video. Plant 8, Liriope, also called lily turf or monkey grass. Liriope muscari is hardy in USDA zones 5 through 10, and it is one of the very few perennials in American gardening that genuinely thrives in both full sun and full shade with equal vigor. That is rare. Almost every plant on this list, almost every plant in any catalog, has a clear preference. Liriope does not. It performs identically in either condition, which makes it one of the most flexible plants you can possibly add to a landscape. The foliage looks like a thick tuft of dark glossy grass, deep green and arching, at about 12 to 18 inches tall and 15 inches wide per clump. The leaves are evergreen in Zone 6 and warmer, semi-evergreen in Zone 5, which means even in winter, your Liriope plantings still look like intentional, designed, living garden features. Most ornamental grasses turn brown and need cutting back. Liriope holds its color through January. In late summer, typically August into September, lavender-purple flower spikes rise above the foliage like miniature versions of grape hyacinths. Each spike holds dozens of tiny bell-shaped flowers tightly stacked, and a mature Liriope clump produces 20 to 30 spikes simultaneously, creating a low haze of purple over the green grass-like foliage. After the flowers fade, dark blue-black berries form on the spikes and persist into winter, providing additional visual interest in the colder months. It spreads steadily through underground rhizomes at a moderate, controllable pace. Not aggressive, not invasive, not problematic, but reliably outward. One plant doubles its footprint every 2 to 3 seasons. Every 4 years, you can lift the entire clump in early spring, slice it into 6 to 8 viable divisions with a sharp spade, and replant them across a much wider area. That is one of the highest division yields of any plant in this entire video. From one Liriope in 3 years, you get 6 new plants for free. Use Liriope as a continuous low border along pathways, driveways, and the front edges of any planting bed. It defines the line between lawn and garden cleanly and permanently. It also functions as a weed-suppressing carpet around the base of trees, or where almost nothing else grows successfully due to root competition and dry soil. Plant in any soil that drains. Cut the foliage back to about 3 inches in late winter, just before new growth emerges, to keep the plant looking fresh. That 5-minute job in February is essentially the only annual maintenance Liriope ever asks for. Plant 9, Japanese anemone. There is a specific window every September when the summer perennials are finishing, the fall asters have not quite started, and the garden enters a brief in-between phase that most American yards just live through awkwardly. Japanese anemone fills that exact window with one of the most elegant flower forms available to home gardeners anywhere. Anemone hupahensis and its hybrids are hardy in USDA zones 4 through 8. The flowers sit on top of long, graceful, wiry stems that rise 3 to 4 feet above a clean, dark green, low foliage mound. Each flower is 2 to 3 inches across, perfectly saucer-shaped, with 5 to 10 petals in soft pink or pure white, surrounding a tight cluster of bright golden yellow stamens at the center. The contrast between the soft outer petals and the sharp gold center is genuinely striking, and the flowers move with every breeze, swaying on those long stems like a meadow of butterflies in slow motion. Bloom time is late August into October, depending on your zone, and the bloom period stretches across 6 to 8 straight weeks. That is one of the longest fall bloom windows of any reliable perennial in North American gardening. While your neighbors' yards are starting to look tired and finished, your Japanese anemone bed is just hitting its peak. Here is the part that earns Japanese anemone its place on this fast-spreading list. It runs aggressively through underground stolons. Once established, typically in its second year, the plant pushes out new shoots 2 to 3 feet from the parent plant each season, and within 4 years, one initial planting becomes a substantial colony that genuinely fills its space. That spread is exactly why some gardening sources warn about it. They are not wrong, but they are missing the point. If you want a fast-spreading fall bloomer, you want this exact behavior. Choose your site accordingly. Honorine Jobert is the white cultivar that has been grown continuously since 1858 and remains one of the most beautiful flowers ever named after anyone. September Charm produces a soft rose pink with exceptional vigor. Both perform reliably. Plant Japanese anemone in part shade in moisture-retentive soil amended with compost. The first year of establishment is slow. Be patient through that first season. From year 2 forward, the plant shows you exactly what it can do. Plant 10, Goldenrod Fireworks. There are 2 specific lies American gardeners have been told about this plant for the last 70 years, and almost all of us have believed both of them. Lie 1, goldenrod causes fall allergies. Lie 2, goldenrod is a roadside weed not suitable for refined home gardens. Both are completely wrong, and the truth turns goldenrod into one of the most spectacular plants you can possibly own. First, the allergy. Goldenrod blooms at exactly the same time as ragweed in late summer and early fall. Our ragweed is the actual allergy culprit. Ragweed produces lightweight, wind-dispersed pollen that travels for miles through the air, enters your sinuses, and triggers your immune system to overreact. Goldenrod produces heavy, sticky pollen carried exclusively by insects, bee to bee, butterfly to butterfly, beetle to beetle. It physically cannot become airborne. It cannot enter your sinuses. Goldenrod has never caused a single allergy reaction in the history of the plant. It simply bloomed nearby while ragweed did the actual damage and took the blame for it. That is one of the largest cases of mistaken identity in American gardening history. Second, the form. Solidago rugosa fireworks is hardy in USDA zones 4 through 9. The cultivar fireworks specifically was selected for its dramatic arching habit. The flower stems do not stand upright the way wild goldenrod does. They arch outward and downward in long, graceful sprays, every spray covered with hundreds of tiny golden yellow florets that radiate in every direction. The visual effect is exactly what the name suggests. Frozen fireworks, mid-explosion, in your garden, in October. It blooms from late August through October, which makes it one of the most strategically valuable plants on this entire video. Most perennials peak in June and July, and by September, your options are running thin. Goldenrod fills that late-season gap with bold golden color exactly when the rest of the garden has gone quiet. And here is the ecological story almost nobody knows. Goldenrod supports over 100 species of native bees, butterflies, and beneficial insects. 100. It is one of the most ecologically productive flowering plants native to North America, and growing it in your yard is one of the most direct, measurable contributions any home gardener can make to supporting the local insect ecosystem that every food crop and flowering plant in your area depends on. It spreads enthusiastically through underground rhizomes. In a naturalized area, give it room and let it run. In a formal border, divide every 3 years to keep the colony in check. Every division is a free plant. Plant in full sun in average soil. Walk away. Watch the show in October. 10 plants in, and I want to acknowledge something. If you have made it this far, you are not casually scrolling. You are seriously planning a yard that will look completely transformed by next May. That tells me everything I need to know about you. The gardeners who watch this channel all the way through are the ones whose yards genuinely change within one season. Subscribe right now if you have not already, and hit the bell so the next video, which goes even deeper than this one, actually finds you. Plant 11, New England Aster. Every plant on this list earns its place from spring through summer, or summer through fall. This one earns its place in October. When the first cold nights arrive, when most gardens have already started shutting down, when your neighbors are dragging tarps over their finished beds and putting away the hoses, this plant explodes. And it does it in colors so saturated and deep that they look almost unreal against the gold and brown landscape behind them. Symphyotrichum novae anglii is hardy in USDA zones 3 through 8, on one of the most cold-hardy late-blooming perennials available to American gardeners anywhere in the country. The daisy-like flowers come in deep violet purple, rich lavender, vivid pink, and pure white, with bright golden yellow centers that catch the lower autumn light and seem to glow. Most plants look washed out in fall. New England aster does the opposite. It deepens, it saturates. It performs in October with the same intensity that summer perennials perform in June. Here is the ecological detail that makes this plant so important. Asters are among the very last reliable nectar sources available to monarch butterflies before they complete their 2,000-mile migration to central Mexico. Research from Monarch Watch and multiple university entomology departments documents New England aster as a critical late-season fueling station along both the eastern and central monarch flyways. Growing this plant in your yard is one of the most direct, concrete contributions any home gardener can make to monarch butterfly survival. Full stop. Now here is the trick that separates gardeners who grow spectacular asters from gardeners whose asters flop open and disappoint them. In late May, when the plants are about a foot tall, pinch every single stem back by half. In late June, when the new growth has caught up, pinch them back by half again. 2 pinches. That is all. Those 2 simple cuts produce a plant with dramatically more branching, dramatically more flower stems, and a dense, self-supporting, compact form that does not require staking. Skip the pinches, and you get a tall, floppy mess that needs propping up. Do them, and you get a fall spectacle that stops every person walking past your yard. It spreads vigorously through rhizomes and self-seeds reliably. Divide every 3 years in early spring to keep the colony vigorous and produce free new plants you can spread to other areas of your yard. And when a monarch butterfly finally lands on your aster bed in October, when you are sitting outside in a sweater because the mornings have turned cold, watching that migration pause in your specific yard for a moment before continuing south, that is the exact moment this entire 11-plant list pays off. Every Saturday investment, every dollar spent at the nursery in May, every choice you made, sun lands in that single quiet October moment. That is what you planted for. Now here is the question that matters most. Every plant on this list could technically be purchased and planted in June, in July, even in August. So why does May matter so specifically? Why is this video called Plant These in May and not Plant These whenever you have a free Saturday? Because of what happens underground in May before you see anything happening above ground. In May, soil temperatures across the bulk of American growing zones sit between 55 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That temperature range is the precise biological window in which perennial root systems establish fastest, grow most efficiently, and develop the deep anchoring structure they need to survive their first summer in your yard. Plant within that window, and roots have 8 to 10 full weeks of cool, moist, low-stress soil to develop in before peak summer heat arrives. 8 to 10 weeks of root development at the foundational level. Miss that window, plant in late June or July, and those same roots are trying to establish in hot, dry, stressed conditions while simultaneously supporting a plant that is already trying to grow and bloom above ground. The energy demand splits. The establishment slows. The plant might survive that first season, but it will not thrive. And first-season establishment determines everything about long-term performance, particularly for fast-spreading perennials like the 11 on this list. Every plant put in the ground this May will spread further, bloom more profusely, and live longer than the identical plant planted 6 weeks later. May is not a preference. It is a biological window with a closing date, and that window is open right now. 3 rules separate a yard where these plants thrive from a yard where they merely survive. Most gardening content skips all 3 of them. Rule 1. Define your edges before you plant anything. Every plant on this list spreads. That is the entire point. But spreading plants without defined edges become invading plants, and invading plants in your lawn or your neighbor's lawn become a problem. Before you put a single plant in the ground this May, install a clean physical edge between your planting beds and your lawn. A 6-inch deep steel edging, a row of buried bricks, a hardscape border, even a clean spade-cut trench refreshed twice a year works. Define the boundary first, plant inside it, and your spreaders stay where you want them. Skip this step. and the plants will eventually go where they want to go. Rule 2. Mulch shallow at planting, not deep. Conventional gardening advice tells you to apply 3 to 4 inches of mulch around new perennials. For fast-spreading plants like the ones on this list, that advice is wrong. Heavy mulch smothers the surface stolons and rhizomes that allow these plants to spread. Apply only 1 to 2 inches of mulch at planting and apply it in a donut shape, leaving the immediate root zone exposed. The plant gets the moisture conservation benefits of mulch without losing the ability to send out the runners that make it spread. That single change in technique can double the rate of establishment in the first year. Rule 3. Mark your calendar for division. Cure. Every plant on this list will need division at some point in the next 3 to 5 years. The gardeners who do this on schedule end up with twice the plants and gardens that perform at peak vigor every season. The gardeners who skip it end up with overcrowded clumps, declining bloom, and a slow drift toward mediocrity. When you plant in May, write the division date on a calendar 3 years from now. Give yourself the reminder. That single 30-second action protects the entire investment you're making this Saturday. You just spent 35 minutes learning 11 plants that will turn your yard into a continuous wave of color from May through November, with full structure and presence even in January, all of it spreading on its own, all of it multiplying for free, all of it asking almost nothing from you in return. That is not just a video. That is a plan, a real specific actionable plan for the lushest landscape on your street within 12 weeks, and one that gets better and richer every single year. You own the house. If even one plant on this list is going into your soil this May, subscribe to this channel right now. Because next week we go just as deep. The week after that, just as deep. Real plant knowledge, real zone-specific guidance, real information that saves you money and changes how your outdoor space actually performs. You do not want to be the gardener who finds this channel 6 months from now, looks at this video, and wishes you had subscribed today. The gardeners who subscribed at the beginning are already ahead. Drop one comment below before you go. Tell me which plant from this list you are putting in the ground first, and tell me what state or zone you are gardening in. I read every single comment, and your answer directly shapes the videos I make next. This is your yard. This is your May. The window is open right now. Go plant something.